through the means of data capture, storage, and data utilization, help me welcome up on stage from the company that wants their success to be other success, Kevin Libbos from EMCAP, Empowering Capabilities. Take it away, Kevin.
Thank you, Christina, for the nice introduction. And I'll quickly jump right in. So, of course, you're looking here at a picture of the Western Hemisphere, and you see two places outlined. See Hawaii and Costa Rica. So if I think a little bit about the characteristics of, let's start with Hawaii, right? Middle of the Pacific Ocean, nothing is around for thousands of miles, it's very isolated. And maybe something that you can't see on the map is it has a low diversity of species and ecosystems. Then I move over to Costa Rica. Influences from North America, South America, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean. It has 13 unique ecosystems, all comprised in this small geographical area. What does that mean? So what, right? Well, when something happens, there's a disruption, a sudden change. Time and time again, it shows that the species and ecosystems of Hawaii, they really suffer. Time and time again, species and ecosystems, Costa Rica, bounce back up on their feet again. And probably the reasons why is that the species, they're hedging their risk. They're in many different ecosystems. So something happens in one place, they're hedging. And there's also this term called symbiotic relationships that you use in science. And in the business context, you could think of co-opetition, where species, people are coming together and working together, otherwise they would have never worked with in the past. So getting into many different ecosystems and co-opetition, these are characteristics of nature that we can really take with us in the business world. And I'm a process improvement consultant. Christina had a lot of adjectives there, but basically for a long time in these traditional projects, I would go in and look at the supply chain, look at where is there overprocessing, defects, waiting. And I can tell you more and more, I'll even make a really bold statement. It's more important for you today to have an okay product or an okay service, but be plugged into many ecosystems like Costa Rica, than it is to have the very best product or best service in one ecosystem. I mean, that's quite a fundamental shift in thinking. And I'll give one fluffy example of Starbucks, right? Maybe 10, 15 years ago, best roasting techniques, best coffee beans, most efficient supply chain. We need to be better than our competitors. And today, you'll see them popping up all over the place, gas stations all over Sweden, right? They've made a fundamental decision to start looking into different ecosystems, to start looking at competitors and where they can join forces. And that's what we need to start doing. But how? I'm going to start off by saying, unfortunately, which you'll see in my last slide, it's all about data, but it doesn't have to be unfortunately forever. So the very first thing you need to do is start consolidating your data into one place. And SharePoint is not a database, because you need to put your data somewhere where you can utilize it, do something with it. So I know a lot of the people that I talk to at the conference in geothermal using Microsoft. So maybe just read up on what data lakes can do for you. It can take structured data, unstructured data from initial assessment reports and memorandums, and dump them in that data lake. When you have it in the data lake, now this is where the value is really going to start to happen. Now you can start utilizing all the services that your platform has to offer. Maybe it's a RPA service in the exploration phase, when you're searching manually for who owns the property. Maybe it's AI service that's going to help you identify what parameters are affecting KPIs. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm sure many of you have sensors set up in your power plant operations. So it tells you the temperature is 100 degrees, or the rate of water flow was 20 liters a second yesterday. Today it's 7 liters per second. That's great that you have that information. What you really want to know is why, right? These are the type of services that you can start to utilize, like AI and logic services that can start to give you insight. And let's do a hypothetical situation here, right? There's geothermal company 1, they have 10 people, and they continue to work in the traditional way of working, versus geothermal company 2 with 10 people as well, but they're utilizing all the different services. So geothermal company 1 spends a lot of time collecting data, turning that into some kind of usable information, whereas company 2, that's automated for them already. They're already getting insights from AI and ML, RPAs doing the work for them. So they can spend their time on decision making, right? So something sudden happens, a big change, company 2 can react really quickly. And finally, I don't want to get too technical. I want to keep this kind of simple and high level, but you need to start thinking about how you can expose your data to all the external stakeholders out there. So suppliers, partners, even competitors. What type of data, if you exposed, you could really speed up your business? So data collection, number 1. Utilize services available to you, become much more diverse. Start exposing your data. We have a little problem though. So, I haven't been in the industry so long, I'm still a little bit green, but I went around talking to people at the conference, subject matter experts, and I always try to figure out where is this industry at in their digital transformation. And some areas you scored higher, some areas you scored average, but I can tell you, no matter who I talked to at the geothermal conference, whether they were a geoscientist who has specific needs and specific data types, or an operations manager in a power plant who has different needs, you always scored low on these 2 questions. Do you have easy access to data to be able to do your job? And do you trust the data that you're looking at? And this is a bit of a problem because the most successful organizations in the world, they spend very little time in the transactional layer, where you're collecting data, you're massaging it, you're trying to turn it into information. All of that's automated for them, and they spend most of the time in the analytics layer. So now we have a journey. We need to flip the switch. We need to find a way to modernize and spend time in the analytics and decision-making layer. And you can start by collecting your data, putting it in one place, start utilizing services like AI to help you trust the data, spot anomalies, find correlation coefficients that you couldn't identify before. This will bring up your score. So, of course, it sounds easy or maybe complex, but I'll finish on this because I'm working on a project with Baseload, of course, and I was having a discussion with the CEO the other day on a specific project, and he had mentioned hard things are hard. And I think this quote came from Obama, of course. And I think of the challenges that we have to modernize and digitally transform. Hard things are hard, but yes, we can. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Sure.
My first thought, this sounds expensive, is it?
Maybe I'll flip the switch on that. I was having a conversation with a man from Business Sweden when we were in Iceland, and I was talking about cases that like ExxonMobil is doing, or Volvo, similar type of processes where they're collecting data and they're starting to utilize services and exposing it and so on. And he said to me, yeah, but obviously geothermal, they don't have the same capital available to start investing in this. He's totally right. However, there's a term cloud native, we're almost data native because we're very lucky. Those companies have thousands of applications, thousands of places where they're storing data and it's in silos. That's a seriously complex project for them and they're undertaking it. Whereas us, we have a few applications. So the project is relatively simple for us. So I won't give you a dollar value, but I'll say it's simple, and simple usually equates to
So actually
cheaper.
there are no excuses for really diving into this, definitely. But it's also interesting if you turn it around. What's the risk if we don't act?
The risk, okay. I won't get dramatic and say something like, well, if we don't change, maybe an example like COP26, right? That was just going on. And I know there was some sentiment that we needed to be on the radar more, right? Mm-hmm. I think the best way to get on the radar is start showing awesome reference cases of how we've modernized an industry. Processes that used to take months are now taking weeks to days. And that's all within our reach, using technology as an enabler. So we can mitigate those risks and we can start getting on people's radars a lot more.
You heard it. So Kevin, as a final question, I think that this is very relevant and good information, but also a lot of information which we need to digest, and they can of course watch it afterwards. But if they would take away one thing from this presentation you had, what would that be? What would your advice be?
Yeah, maybe don't get intimidated by lingo and terms. So I start talking about like services and AI and ML, and usually the reaction by people the first time they hear that, they think of like self-driving cars and like, oh, AI is so complicated. But there's so many really simple AI services and logic services that are already available that you could start using. So just get in, store your data in one place, start experimenting with those different type of services, and it's going to lead you on a great journey and a great path.
So again, no excuses.
No excuses.
No excuses. You heard it from here. It is actually a part of what the world looks today, and we need to take technology into consideration.
The future.